Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to a special edition of the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Executive Editor Rob Toder of the Alliance Review, joined as always by Sports Editor Mike Brown. And this is, as I said, a special Huddle version. We are going to talk about the future of the Northeastern Buckeye Conference. And if you did not get a chance to see Mike Brown's excellent column today in the Alliance Review or on the Review.com website, he talks extensively about the fact that rumors are abounding again that Salem and West Branch are about to leave the NBC, possibly for the All-American Conference. Mike, let's start with, without revealing sources, what do you know at this point?
Well, it sounds like it's almost a certainty that the All-American Conference is going to, in fact, offer Salem and West Branch a spot into that. They have 4 tiers in the All-American Conference, and what they do, they pretty much base it on enrollment, which would be a great fit for Salem and West Branch. I mean, obviously, they'd be going up against schools their own size then. The downside is the travel, Rob, because obviously West Branch's closest opponent would be Salem, and after that, you're going to Youngstown and points north into Trumbull County for some of those games.
Absolutely. Right now, there's 23 schools in the All-American Conference, which is really a huge number. It's probably the biggest conference in the state outside of the Ohio Capital Conference down in Columbus. Again, 4 tiers, and looking at the numbers, you're looking at schools like Struthers that match up with West Branch and Salem. You're looking at a school like Girard possibly, but you're also looking at a couple schools in Ashtabula County, in Jefferson and Ashtabula Edgewood, and those are very long drives, and I think that is sort of a prohibitive for both West Branch and Salem because, you know, Friday night football, it's a long drive, and you're not going to get a lot of fans up there. But when you're talking basketball and a lot of other sports,
and middle school sports,
I think you really have to take a hard look at the kind of time that your students are going to be spending on a school bus.
Right, and the sources I talked to were taking that into effect too when they're trying to work this out with Salem and West Branch, that they were going to try and tweak the alignments in the league. I don't know how you do that, but they were going to try and look into that to try and accommodate Salem and West Branch the best that they can. Yeah.
Now, I know in the Inter-Tri-County League, the middle school and I believe the freshman levels for those schools that have some freshman sports don't adhere necessarily to the varsity tiers, so to speak. So, in other words, maybe a McDonald will play Mineral Ridge twice in 7th and 8th grade basketball, where they might not do that in varsity basketball. So, there are, like you said, there are some advantages to that you can play some of the closer schools. But the fact is, even for Salem, you're talking 35 minutes probably from Salem to Struthers, probably that far to Girard. And so there's still, now in the NBC, one of the great benefits of being in the NBC is quick travel time. You've got 15 minutes from Salem to West Branch, Salem the farthest easternmost school in the league. Going to Marlington even is probably only about a 30-minute drive.
Right,
so,
absolutely.
There's a lot of great travel times in the NBC. But on the other hand, there's the issue of competitive balance in the NBC, and you hate to use that word because it's the latest buzzword in high school sports. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, that elephant in the room is Louisville High School, and I want to make sure that people watching this understand Mike and my position on this. There's nothing personal about this. Louisville is a great partner in the NBC, and I don't think you'd find one administrator in the NBC that would say Louisville's not a great partner. But the fact of the matter is they are much bigger enrollment-wise than any of the other schools, and it's led to a competitive imbalance. And you only have to look to football and boys basketball the last 2 years. The girls basketball program has always been near the top of the NBC. So there's been some problems in the last couple of years with Louisville dominating everything, and the other schools feel like there's not that competitive advantage, or they have a competitive advantage because of the enrollment.
Right, and what's really changed, and I pointed this out in my column today, Rob, is that Louisville's enrollment has pretty much stayed the same what it was from 15, 20 years ago. But what's happened is Minerva was a Division II at one time. West Branch was a Division II at one time. Canton South was a D2. I mean, there were like 4 or 5 schools that were D2, and most of those schools are now D4, and they're not going to go back. You know, if anything, they'll probably continue to get a little bit smaller. It's not like those schools are going to miraculously become Division IIs again. So I think that's what's created the difference. You know, where everybody was pretty competitive. Minerva was very competitive with Louisville. West Branch was competitive with Louisville. You know, a lot of those schools, and now those schools are smaller, and Louisville stayed the same, and it's created an imbalance. It really has. And I don't know what the answer is. It breaks my heart if we see the NBC, you know, break up down the road because of this. But, you know, it may have come to that it's either going to be possibly either Louisville goes and looks for a league maybe like the Suburban, which I think they'd be a perfect fit in the Suburban. Again, the downside would be the traveling. Or, you know, I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but I don't think it's going to play out well.
Okay, what do you see? I mean, we've heard Dover and New Philadelphia rumors in the NBC. We've heard two-tier rumors for the NBC, which, in my personal experience as a reporter covering leagues like the ITCL and the AAC, it may be a good short-term solution, but long-term, we've seen it in the AAC, we've seen it now in the ITCL, now that it has 3 tiers, that what we're told none of the coaches like.
Right.
So the more is not necessarily better.
That's right.
And I think an 8-team league is great, but I think let's take it from this scenario. Salem and West Branch say we're gone in 2 years or a year, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You really, a 6-team league is probably not a viable solution. Do you try to bring in a Dover and New Philly that are as big as Louisville, and now you've really got Minerva behind a school that's going to be substantially smaller than everybody else, really, against an 8-ball, and they're kind of tied with Carrollton in terms of a rivalry. So if Minerva then says we're leaving because you're bringing in bigger schools. Do you take a Carrollton? Now maybe the NBC's right back in the same boat.
Right.
Where do you see the future of the NBC? Let's take it from this scenario that Salem and West Branch leave. What does the NBC do?
Well, we found out before when there were openings before, just one opening in the NBC, there was no perfect fit because, like you said, Rob, it's hard. If you bring a Dover and New Philly in, which I think they would be game for that. I really think they want to join the NBC. But the downside is, like you said, Minerva's going to say, I don't think Minerva votes for that. I really don't, because they're going to say, now wait a minute, you know, we're taking on 2 more bigger schools, and they would definitely be the smallest school then in the NBC. And I tell you what, Canton South is smaller. I don't know if they would go for that. And Canton South tried to get out of the league last spring and went for the Pac-7 and just didn't get in because you know, Northwest got one of those spots and Orville got the other one.
Yeah.
So
and not to interrupt, I guess I am, but you know, you look at a school like Northwest that really wanted to get back in the NBC if possible, but they've now committed to the Pac-7, so that's really maybe not a viable option if you do get that opening to bring in a school like Northwest and maybe an Orville to kind of keep that balance. But I don't know that Orville, sort of in the same boat as Salem and West Branch, they've lost enrollment. Do they want to jump from the Pac-7 to an NBC that's got Louisville, Marlington, and Alliance involved?
Exactly. I seriously doubt they would. I mean,
I do
they
too.
were involved in the talks last fall when the NBC wanted to go to a 2-tiered setup, and Dover and New Philly were going to come in, and they were going to join Louisville in that large tier. But the bottom line is they asked the current NBC members, and I don't believe any of them. There may have been one. It was either one or none wanted to jump in the big division with Louisville. So that just ended that idea right there. And because that was something they were really keen on last fall. They were hopeful they were going to be able to go to 2 divisions and 2 tiers in the NBC, and everybody was going to be happy. And that just kind of shot that down, and I think they've kind of trashed that idea ever since.
Yeah. Let's say Salem and West Branch decide AAC is not a really good fit for us. I mean, clearly, this is not the first time that both of those schools have indicated they're not happy with the current setup in the NBC.
Yeah.
I mean, do we form a new league? I mean, is that a viable option? I think to do that, you still got to bring some of your partners from the NBC in and maybe find somebody else. And I think the problem is, as we've talked before, the NBC is sort of landlocked in terms of similar sized schools. There's a great number of schools in Columbiana County, but they're all substantially smaller in the ITCL, and I don't think that that's a viable option to bring any of them in unless there's some consolidation there, which is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's kind of like gridlock. It's like, I honestly don't know what's going to happen because, you know, the NBC, if those two leave, there's no perfect fit to bring anybody in. In a 6-team league, you can do it. It's not ideal. But then if you have Minerva, say Minerva would leave or Carrollton would leave, you don't see 5-team leagues. No. You just don't see that. I mean, so they are teetering on the brink if that happens. So I don't know which way it's going to go. You know, it's really come down to, you know, from what I hear, some of the small schools are saying it's either Louisville or us. And if Louisville goes and joins something like the Suburban, I don't think they would take on the Federal League right now. Then I could see the league going after maybe a St. Thomas Aquinas or something like that to fill out that 8th spot. But again, that's just, there's nothing to base that on. That's just me looking at the area because St. Thomas always played up in its schedule, and I don't think taking on the NBC would be a problem. Plus, you know, they would save and travel. You look at the league St. Thomas, and now they're going to Cleveland all the time to play on the North Coast. So that's that is a lot of travel there.
I want to make sure everybody understands that this is a lot of this is just conjecture on Mike's part and my part. This is what could happen. This is what, based on our experience in previous years, things that have gone on. So nothing's set in stone, but we do know Salem and West Branch have indicated to the AAC that they're least interested and they're talking with the All-American Conference. So it's a tangled web, and there's a lot of twists and turns involved in this, and something's definitely, I think, going to happen probably in the short term. You know, and to be quite honest, and no disrespect to any other athletic endeavor, but football stirs the drink.
It does. It pays the bills.
It pays the bills. Yep. And so we kind of tend to talk about football a lot because that's the monster in the room. So, and football kind of drives the conversation. And a lot of schools, when they're looking to change leagues, look at it from how is this going to affect our bottom line, not only our competitiveness, but also our bottom line. That's why you're looking at a program, I think, like West Branch, that has some really strong girls programs in volleyball and basketball and softball and track, just to name a few. You know, or maybe suffer a little bit because the NBC is a very strong league for girls basketball and girls athletics in general. So they may be sacrificing some of that competitiveness because of the football situation. And if you're not bringing fans in, if you're not bringing butts in the seats for football, then you got to look at your situation.
That's
so,
right.
A lot of twists and turns there. But make sure you stick with the Alliance Review. We're going to have the first coverage on all of this as it happens in the review.com. Anything that breaks, we'll make sure we get it up on our website, and we'll talk to you about it later. So stay tuned to the review.com and the Alliance Review. For Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder.